Imagine opening your eyes and realizing in the very first second that something is wrong with the world around you. The air is colder than it should be, raw and metallic, biting your lungs like winter iron. There's no distant hum of electricity, no cars, no neon lights bleeding through the night. Just silence, heavy, ancient, almost predatory. And then the smell hits you. A thick mixture of wood smoke, damp earth, human sweat, animal waste, and the sour stench of decay that clings to every surface. It's overwhelming, invasive, and so unmistakably medieval that your instincts recoil before your mind can make sense of it. You try to breathe slowly, but the air feels alive, full of particles your modern body isn't prepared to meet. Your clothes, clean synthetic, unmistakably modern, suddenly become your greatest enemy. In the Middle Ages, looking different wasn't quirky. It wasn't interesting. It was suspicious. And in a world governed by superstition, fear, and a brutal sense of divine judgment, suspicion could end a life in minutes. You look down at yourself. The smooth fabric, the manufactured seams, the colors far too consistent to have been dyed by hand. Even your shoes betray you. Nothing about you fits. Nothing blends. You are a walking omen. An anomaly no camponese, no soldier, no priest has the framework to understand. And before you can take a single step, someone sees you. A farmer at the edge of a barley field lifts his head slowly, eyes narrowing immediately in a way that feels primal, as if humans back then carried some instinct we've forgotten, an instinct that warned them when something foreign, something impossible stepped into their world. He doesn't see a traveler, he doesn't see a lost stranger. He sees a sign, a curse, maybe even a demon sent to test him. You freeze, trying to force a smile, maybe wave, maybe look harmless. But nothing about you is harmless here. Your posture, your expression, the way you look around, none of it matches the quiet resignation of medieval peasants, acostumados a vidas duras demais, curtas demais e violentas demais para permitir curiosidade ou gentileza imediata. He drops his basket. He makes the sign of the cross, not the gentle one from Sunday Mass, but the desperate, jagged version people made when they believed their soul was in danger. You take a step back, but that only makes it worse. He shouts something you don't understand, a mixture of Old English, rural dialect, and pure terror. And that's just when reality sets in. You've time-traveled into a world where language isn't English with a weird accent. It's a different creature entirely. Harsh, guttural, full de palabras que morreram há séculos. You're not just a stranger, you are incomprehensible. Your panic sharpens when you notice others turning their heads. Women stopping mid-task, children peeking behind doorways, a dog growling with its fur raised. The village begins to recognize that something unnatural has arrived. And medieval European villagers were experts at one thing: eliminating anything that threatened the fragile balance holding their world together. Before you can decide to run, a group of men emerges from behind the houses, ropes in hand, pitchforks, axes meant for chopping firewood, but perfectly capable of opening your skull. They're not angry. They're afraid. And fear is far deadlier. Your heart races. You want to explain, to plead, to reason, but none of it matters. In a society onde a ciência ainda dormia, onde a maioria das pessoas nunca via ninguém de fora da própria aldeia, onde a fé era misturada com superstição crua, a presença de estranho vestido como você era simplesmente inconcebível. The kind of thing priests wrote sermons about, the kind of thing mothers whispered about to scare their children. If you misbehave, the Dark Wanderer will come for you. You try to step back, slowly, hands raised. But in the Middle Ages, even surrender could be interpreted as a trick, a test from the devil, a trap. Someone grabs a stone, someone else raises an axe, and in that instant, as your breath becomes shallow and the world caves in around you, you finally understand the truth. No romance, no fantasy movie, no school book ever prepared you for. Time traveling to the Middle Ages isn't an adventure. It's a death sentence that starts the moment they lay eyes on you. But let's say, by some impossible stroke of luck, you escape those first villagers. Maybe you run. Maybe you hide in a forest thick enough to swallow sound. Maybe they hesitate long enough for you to slip between trees before the first stone strikes your spine. You think you're safe for now, but you're not. Because in the Middle Ages, forests weren't sanctuaries. They were living, breathing labyrinths of fear, whispered about in prayers and nightmares. A place where wolves hunted in packs, where outlaws gathered to rob and kill anyone who crossed their path, where people believed spirits, fae, and demons wandered after sunset. And you, alone, unarmed, dressed like a creature from another world, are the easiest prey that Forest has ever seen. Your breathing grows heavy, your legs shaking, your mind racing with the surreal certainty that everything you knew, modern life, safety, hospitals, law, light, is gone. You tell yourself to calm down, to find water, to think like a survivor. But then the second danger arrives, and it is far worse than villagers or wolves. Your body. It starts with a scratch. A thorn cuts your hand as you push through a bush. Nothing major, something you wouldn't even look at twice back home. But in the Middle Ages, that tiny cut is a loaded gun aimed at your life. You don't have antibiotics, you don't have clean water, you don't have the immunity medieval people reluctantly built over a lifetime of suffering. Every bacteria in this forest is a microscopic assassin waiting to exploit the smallest opening. Your hand begins to throb. The blood smells strangely sweet, sweetness you've never noticed before. That's because, in this time period, the air carries a density of microbes your immune system has never encountered. Everything here is dirty, by your standards. But the truth is more brutal. Your body wasn't built for this ecosystem. It's too sanitized, too protected, too modern. Your stomach churns next, not from hunger, but from the water you drank minutes earlier, cold, muddy, metallic. You thought you had no choice, and that was true, but medieval water wasn't just unfiltered. It was alive with disease, parasites, and rot. The same water that kept villages alive also killed them slowly, painfully, relentlessly. You bend over, nauseous, vision flickering. A wave of cold sweat rolls down your neck. You're not dying yet, but you've already set the timer. In this world, sickness isn't a possibility. It's a guarantee. You push deeper into the forest, hoping to find a road. Eventually you do, a mud path carved by wheels and hooves, lined with deep grooves filled with stagnant rainwater. Every step you take spits filth onto your shoes. The smell intensifies. Manure, rot, sweat soaked into wooden wheels. The metallic scent of old blood dried in the dirt. And then, in the distance, you hear it. Hooves. A horse-drawn cart approaches, slow and rhythmic. Relief swells in your chest. Civilization. Help. Someone who might not attack you instantly. You step forward into the road, raising your hands cautiously. The driver sees you. He slows the horse. You think maybe, just maybe, you found a moment of mercy in this world. But then his eyes narrow, not in confusion, not in curiosity, in fear. Because he sees your clothes, he sees your face, cleaner, smoother, healthier than any peasant could achieve. He sees the fabric, the way it fits your body, the unnatural symmetry, the stitching that no medieval tailor could produce. And worst of all, he sees your shoes. Perfect shapes, perfect soles, perfect texture. No cobbler alive in his century could replicate that. To him, you're not a traveler. You're an omen, a witch, a spirit, a devil walking in flesh. He yanks the reins so hard the horse whines. Then he does exactly what medieval people were trained by fear to do. He screams for help before you can speak a single word. His voice cuts through the air like a blade, loud, panicked, desperate. Doors slam open in the distance, voices rise, shadows move, and you realize with growing terror that humans aren't your enemy here. Fear is. Because fear, in the Middle Ages, had authority. Fear had logic. Fear had the blessing of the church. And fear had a very simple rule. Anything unexplained must be punished before it spreads. You back up slowly, heart pounding so violently it hurts. You turn and run, because there is nothing else left to do. You run even though your legs burn, even though your lungs feel like they're inhaling fire, even though you know you can't outrun a century built on paranoia. Eventually the forest swallows you again, and the sounds of pursuit fade. But the world is not done with you. You collapse beside an old fallen tree, chest heaving, head spinning, the scratch on your hand throbbing in a way that feels wrong, almost infected already. Your stomach twists again, violently this time. You spit onto the ground and see the water you drank, coming back mixed with bile. And then, as you wipe your mouth with trembling fingers, the realization hits with brutal clarity: you haven't even reached nightfall. And night in the Middle Ages is where the real horror begins. Night doesn't fall in the Middle Ages the way it does in your world. It doesn't ease in, it drops, sudden, heavy, absolute. One moment the trees around you are shimmering gold under the sinking sun. The next, the forest becomes a black wall pressing in from all directions, as if the darkness itself has weight. Your eyes struggle, your breathing hitches, and every instinct you've ever had screams that you are no longer in a time that cares whether you survive. The temperature drops, not softly, violently. Your teeth begin to chatter, your fingers stiffen, your breath becomes visible. Medieval nights were colder than modern ones, not because of climate, but because people back then lived surrounded by raw nature, with no insulation, no artificial heat, and no protection besides fire and wool. And you have none of those. You rub your arms, trying to warm yourself, but your body burns energy faster than you can generate it. Hunger gnaws at your stomach, but there's no food. Thirst dries your throat, but you know now that any water you find will be a gamble with death. You sit against a tree, trying to collect your thoughts, but the world around you refuses to be silent. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howls. Long, low, and far too close. Another joins it, then another. Wolves weren't the cartoon creatures people imagine today. They hunted humans. They followed wounded travelers. They attacked children in open fields. And if a pack senses a lone, weak target in their territory, they don't hesitate. They stalk. They circle. They wait. You stand up fast, heart pounding, scanning the darkness. The forest creaks and shifts, branches snapping under something that's moving. Something heavier than a deer, lighter than a bear, but confident enough not to hide its presence. You spin, trying to locate it, but the darkness is total. You can barely see your own hand. Your mind races. You need fire, you need shelter, you need anything. But you have nothing. You pick up a broken branch, try to spark it against a stone, try to remember how fire is made without lighters or matches. But nothing happens. You were never taught the old ways. Why would you be? In your world, fire is a convenience. Here, it's the line between life and death. Your fingers tremble, the branch dips. In the silence that follows, you hear footsteps, human this time. Slow, careful, deliberate. The kind of footsteps that belong to someone who doesn't want to be heard, but knows the forest well enough to move without stumbling. Your breath stops. Bandits. In the Middle Ages, forests weren't just places of nature. They were sanctuaries for criminals, outlaws, deserters, thieves, men banished from villages, men who killed for coin. Men who stole because the world gave them nothing else. They didn't fear the church, they didn't fear the law, they feared hunger more than sin. And you, sitting alone in the dark, wearing clothes they've never seen, with fabric worth more than a month of their labor, you're not a person to them, you're loot. A shadow moves behind a tree, another flanks you from the left. Your throat tightens as the cold night presses deeper into your bones. You back away slowly, stepping on leaves that crack like bones under your shoes. The shadows move closer, not rushing, not threatening, just approaching with the animal certainty of predators who've already decided what you are. You whisper something, maybe wait, maybe please, but the sound dies in your throat. Even if they understood your words, it wouldn't matter. In this world, mercy is a luxury no one can afford. A twig snaps inches behind you. You spin, panic taking control, and run blindly into the dark. Branches whip your face, roots claw at your ankles. The forest tries to swallow you whole. You can't see where you're going. You crash into a fallen trunk, stumble over it, roll in the mud, scrambling to your feet with shaking legs. Your lungs burn. Your ears ring. You don't know if the men are still behind you. You don't know if the wolves heard you. You don't know if the water you drank is already poisoning your blood. You only know one thing. You're not meant to be here. Your body wasn't made for this century. Your mind wasn't trained for this darkness. Your soul wasn't prepared for a world where night itself is a predator. Eventually, exhausted, limping, shaking from the cold, you find a ditch near the edge of the forest. You crawl into it, hugging yourself, trying to stay awake, because every part of you knows that if you fall asleep, you might never wake up. But your eyelids grow heavy, your breathing slows. The world spins softly, then violently, then softly again. And somewhere between fear and unconsciousness, you hear the distant echo of church bells. A village is nearby, a chance to survive, or a chance to die faster. Your body gives in, your eyes close, and the Middle Ages take hold of you like a hand closing around a throat. You wake up not because your body is rested, but because something cold touches your cheek. A wet cloth, rough hands, voices murmuring in a language you barely recognize. When your eyes finally open, the world is blurry and golden, illuminated by a flame that flickers like it's struggling to stay alive. The smell is familiar now: smoke, sweat, wool, dirt, but deeper, thicker, mixed with a sour odor that clings to everything. You're not outside anymore. You're in a hut, a medieval hut. The ceiling is low, thatched with straw, patched with mud. The light comes from a single candle stuck into a lump of hardened tallow. Shadows crawl on the walls like living things. A woman leans over you. Her face is pale, lined with fatigue, the kind of exhaustion modern people never carry because no one today works until their bones ache daily. Her clothes are coarse, stitched by hand, stained with life. She says something again, slowly, as if speaking to a child or someone delirious. You try to sit up, but your body revolts. Your stomach twists with nausea. Your hand throbs, red, swollen, infected. The scratch from earlier has already transformed into something dangerous, pulsing with heat under the skin. Medieval infections didn't wait days. They didn't give warnings. They spread like wildfire through unprotected flesh. The woman presses your shoulder, urging you to lie still. A man appears behind her, older, bearded, his eyes sharp with suspicion. The way he looks at you is different from hers. She sees a wounded stranger. He sees a problem, maybe even a threat. You try to speak, something simple, something universal like thank you. But the moment your words leave your mouth, the atmosphere shifts. Your accent is wrong, too clean, too foreign, too unlike anything they've ever heard. The man steps back slightly, exchanging a glance with the woman. Not fear this time, calculation. Foreigners weren't common here. A stranger arriving from the forest half dead was enough to spark rumors that could spread faster than plague. The man says something sharply. The woman hesitates, then nods. She hands him a small clay pot filled with a dark liquid. He dips his finger inside and makes the sign of the cross over your forehead. But not the gentle blessing from modern churches. This one is urgent, forceful, like a ritual meant to ward off evil spirits. Your heart tightens. They don't know who you are. They don't know what you are, and they're not sure if they want to find out. The man steps out of the hut. You hear him shouting outside, calling neighbors, maybe the local reeve, maybe the priest. His voice carries the unmistakable tone of a man trying to protect his village by exposing what he believes could be a danger. The woman looks down at you and whispers something softer this time, but the meaning is clear. She's trying to comfort you, but she's also afraid. Fear shapes every movement in this century. Fear of God, fear of devils, fear of famine, fear of strangers. You try to sit up again, fueled by panic, but the room spins violently. The fever is rising fast, spreading through your blood. The water you drank, the infection in your hand, the cold night. They've combined into a sickness your modern immune system can't fight. Your body shakes uncontrollably, sweat beads on your forehead. Your vision blurs at the edges. Outside, footsteps gather, men, multiple. You hear low voices, the clatter of wood, the metallic ring of something being shifted, a tool, a hook, maybe even a chain. You can't tell. The fever makes everything surreal, like you're floating between worlds. The woman notices your fear. She kneels beside you, placing a trembling hand on your forehead, muttering a prayer that's half hope, half ritual. She doesn't want harm to come to you, but she also doesn't want to be punished for sheltering someone who might be seen as cursed. In the Middle Ages, compassion was a risk, a dangerous one. The door creaks open. The man returns with two others. One holds a long wooden pole, the other grips a rope. They stare at you like hunters sizing up an animal caught in their field. Not hostile yet, not violent yet, but ready, prepared. Because the church taught them that the devil hides in the unfamiliar. and the unfamiliar now lies on a straw bed in their only safe place. The oldest of the men speaks, slow and deliberate. His tone carries authority. Maybe he's the village reeve, maybe just the eldest farmer, which was often the same thing. His eyes narrow as he studies your face, your clothes, your strange shoes placed by the wall. His glare stays on them too long. Shoes like yours shouldn't exist here. Shoes like yours can't exist here. He steps closer, the pole in hand, as if testing your reaction. You flinch, and that's enough. He says something to the others, sharp, decisive. They approach as a unit. The woman tries to object, stepping between them and you, but one of the men pushes her aside, not cruelly but firmly, the way someone would move an obstacle during a dangerous task. She protests again, softer this time, knowing her voice won't outweigh the weight of superstition. Your fever spikes, the room melts, your ears ring. You try to stand, but your legs buckle instantly. They catch you, not gently, but efficiently. They pin you down, not out of hatred, but fear. They bind your wrists loosely at first, then tighter when you struggle. The reeve leans close, his breath warm and sour, his voice low enough that only you can hear. He's not threatening you, he's warning you. Whatever they think you are, whatever story is forming in their minds, whatever fear the village priest has planted into their hearts, one truth fills his eyes. If you don't prove yourself harmless, you won't live long enough to see the morning sun. They drag you outside, but not violently. Their fear doesn't allow for rage, only caution. The moon hangs low, swollen and pale, casting a sickly white glow over the mud paths that carve through the village. The air bites harder out here, colder than before, carrying the scent of smoke, manure, stale ale, and something sharper, metallic, like old blood soaked into the earth from long-forgotten butcherings. Your feet stumble over uneven ground as the men pull you toward the village's center. Torches flicker in the distance, forming a small, trembling halo of fire around a gathering of villagers who were once asleep but now stand awake, shivering in the night, whispering to one another. Children cling to their mothers' skirts. Dogs bark nervously, pacing, sensing something unnatural in the air. Every face you see is the same, curious, afraid, suspicious, but not cruel. Cruelty isn't what rules them. Fear is. A fear so old it's etched into their bones, passed down through generations, living in a world where danger comes without warning, where famine burns through villages like wildfire, where disease steals entire families in a single week, where the devil isn't a metaphor but a daily threat lurking behind every tragedy. You try to speak again, to explain, to say anything that might convince them you're harmless. But when the words leave your throat, the villagers recoil instantly. Not because of what you said, but how you said it. Your accent, your cadence, the unnatural smoothness of your voice. It's enough to make an old woman gasp and clutch a rosary made of wooden beads. One man spits on the ground, another murmurs a prayer. A teenager, no older than 14, whispers a word you finally recognize through the fog of language and fever. Witch. The reeve steps forward, lifting his hand, signaling for silence. The crowd obeys. Not because he's their leader, but because in a world without police, without laws as you know them, authority comes from age, land ownership, and fearlessness. And he has all three. He studies you again, your clothes, your face, your infected hand, your trembling body. Then he does something unexpected. He asks you a question. Slowly, clearly, as if giving you a final chance. The villagers hold their breath. You don't understand him. You answer anyway, desperate, voice cracking. Your words drift through the cold air like smoke, and that's when the crowd starts to murmur, louder this time, sharper, like a wave rising before it crashes. Someone says you speak in tongues. Someone else says your shoes were crafted with dark magic. An old man crosses himself repeatedly, whispering about omens and devils walking the land during winter. The reeve doesn't look convinced either way. Not yet. His eyes narrow as he turns to another figure stepping out from the shadow of a larger house. A priest. You feel your blood run cold. Medieval priests were not gentle theologians wrapped in morals and mercy. They were arbiters of fear, guardians of superstition, interpreters of God's wrath. And this one walks with slow, deliberate steps, his eyes sunk deep into his skull, lit by a flicker of torchlight that turns his face into something carved from bone. He stops in front of you. His voice is calm, too calm, the kind of calm that precedes judgment. He asks you something. You don't understand. He repeats, louder, with impatience. You try again. Your answer is wrong. Not because of its meaning, but because of its sound. To the priest, your accent is impossible, your tone unnatural, your sickness suspicious, your clothing inexplicable. Even the fabric of your shirt must feel like blasphemy between his fingers. He steps back slowly, lips tightening. The villagers lean in. The reeve lowers his torch. The priest shakes his head. It's a small gesture, barely visible. But in the Middle Ages, that tiny movement might as well be a death sentence. One of the men holding you tightens the rope around your wrists. Another moves behind you, ready to restrain your shoulders. Mothers pull their children back. Men mutter prayers. A girl starts crying quietly, as if sensing something sacred and terrible is about to happen. The priest leans forward again, voice lower this time, almost gentle, like someone speaking to a dying person. He isn't asking questions anymore. He's giving you one last chance to prove you belong to their world. And you can't, because you don't. Your fever grows hotter, your vision blurs again, colors bleeding at the edges. The ground sways beneath your feet. The priest makes the sign of the cross, slowly, ritualistically, the way someone would bless a corpse. And then he says one word you don't need translation for. It cuts deeper than any blade. Condemned. The moment the priest speaks that single word, the entire atmosphere of the village changes. It happens subtly at first, like the way animals react before a storm. People shift their weight. Torches move slightly closer. Someone behind you exhales in relief, as if a dangerous decision has finally been made. And you feel it. The shift from uncertainty to inevitability. The Middle Ages didn't need proof to judge. Fear was enough. And fear has now chosen your fate. Your knees weaken, partly from fever, partly from the cold night, partly from the realization that you've crossed a threshold you can't come back from. The reeve looks at you with a strange mixture of sympathy and duty. He doesn't hate you. He doesn't want to harm you. But he believes, truly believes, that if he doesn't remove whatever curse you bring, God will punish everyone in the village, their crops, their animals, their children, their souls. This isn't cruelty, it's survival. The priest steps closer again, moving the torch toward your face. The heat stings your skin, forcing you to turn away. He studies you carefully. Not your eyes, not your expression, your reaction. He's looking for signs of the devil, but his definition of sign is terrifyingly simple. Anything unusual. Your clothes, your language, your sickness, your shoes, your fear, your weakness. Everything about you is unusual. He pulls the torch back and gestures for the villagers to bring something. You don't know what. You hear footsteps hurrying away. Doors open and close. Minutes pass. The crowd whispers, their breath rising like smoke in the chilled air, forming a circle around you. Not a tight circle, but a hesitant one, like people surrounding a dangerous animal. Then the boy returns carrying a wooden bucket. Your stomach drops when you see what's inside. Water. Not for drinking, for testing. In this century, water wasn't just a resource, it was a judge. They believe witches float because their bodies reject the purity of holy water. Innocents sink. Guilty souls stay above the surface. It's absurd. It's irrational. It's deadly. But it was law in many places. Law backed by fear, superstition, and the church's authority. Two men grab you, pulling you toward the bucket. Not to drown you, not yet, but to baptize you in their own twisted way. The priest dips his fingers inside and flicks droplets onto your forehead. The moment the cold water touches your feverish skin, your face winces, muscles tightening in shock. The villagers gasp. They don't see a human reaction to temperature. They see a sign of resistance, a sign of rejection, a sign of guilt. Someone whispers, "Devil." Someone else says, "Possessed." The murmurs spread like smoke across dry leaves. The priest watches you like a man examining a snake. He says another sentence, slow, deliberate. You can't understand the words, but the tone is unmistakable. He's asking you something. Your throat is dry. Your lips tremble. You try to speak, but your voice cracks under the fever's weight. Your answer comes out slurred, broken, shaky. It doesn't matter that you're sick. It doesn't matter that you're scared. It doesn't matter that you're trying. To him, to them, your broken speech doesn't show illness. It shows corruption. The priest steps back and nods to the reeve. The reeve looks at you, as though delivering a verdict he wishes someone else could give. His hand tightens around the rope tied to your wrists. He pulls you forward, toward the edge of the village, where a small creek runs, shallow, icy, dark as obsidian under the moonlight. Your heart pounds as they drag you closer. The test is simple. If you float, you're guilty and they kill you. If you sink, you're innocent. And you still might die because no one here can swim. Your breath shortens. Your fever intensifies. Your vision flickers like a candle losing flame. You want to resist, to fight back, to break free. But your body is barely holding itself upright. Every movement sends lightning through your infected hand. Every breath feels like inhaling knives. The creek approaches. The water looks almost black, reflecting the moon like a shard of broken glass. Women clutch their children and step away. Men tighten their grips on tools. The priest stands behind them all, hands folded, face expressionless. You open your mouth, hoping to say something that will somehow bridge centuries of misunderstanding. But only a single weak whisper escapes. Please. It means nothing to them. The reeve lifts you by the arms. Your feet leave the ground. The cold air hits your skin like a slap. The villagers hold their breath. And with no further ceremony, no mercy, no hesitation, they throw you into the freezing medieval water. The shock of the water isn't like anything you've felt in your life. It's not just cold, it's a violence. A force that hits your chest so hard your lungs seize before you even go under. The creek swallows you whole in an instant, the icy current biting into your skin like teeth. Every nerve in your body screams at once. The infection in your hand feels like it explodes beneath your skin, sending white-hot pain up your arm. You kick, instinctively, desperately, but your limbs are sluggish, heavy from fever, stiff from the night's cold. You try to push upward, but the water drags you sideways, rolling your body in the dark. The medieval world didn't know pollution the way your world does. But this wasn't clean water. It carried mud, animal waste, rotting leaves, the remnants of 100 unrecorded lives. It fills your nose, your mouth, your eyes. You cough underwater and choke instantly. The world above becomes nothing but a muffled blur of torchlight, rippling across the surface. You hear distant screams, but you can't tell if they're yours or theirs. You force your arms to move again, but the rope around your wrists restricts your movements, turning every effort into panic. You break the surface for a second, 1 second, stealing a single, ragged breath before a boot slams into your shoulder and pushes you under again. Not out of cruelty, not out of hatred, out of fear. Fear that you might float. Fear that if you float, they'll have to kill you. Fear that if they fail to kill you, God might punish them all. Your lungs burn, your chest tightens, your vision pulses black. Somewhere in the haze, your brain begs you to stop struggling, to let go, to let the dark water take you. And maybe you would, if not for the primal terror that suddenly erupts through every muscle in your body. A terror older than civilization, the terror of drowning. You kick again, harder this time, your body fighting even as it shuts down. Your head breaks the surface once more. You gasp so violently the air slices into your lungs like ice shards. Cold night, cold water, cold fear. They blend together into something that feels like death itself is wrapping around you. Voices shout, torches swing overhead. One man yells that you're sinking. Another says it's a trick. Another screams to let you go, that the devil would never drown. Someone else insists the devil can mimic drowning to deceive the faithful. Everything becomes chaos, fear tumbling over fear like an avalanche. But you barely hear them anymore. The creek grabs you again, dragging you under. Your limbs weaken. Your body shakes uncontrollably, drained by fever, cold, infection, terror. Your lungs contract, screaming for air. Instinct fights logic. Logic fights darkness. Darkness wins for a moment as your eyes flutter closed. And then, hands, arms. Rough, calloused fingers grabbing your clothes, your hair, your shoulders, hauling your dead weight out of the water. A child screams. A dog barks wildly. Someone shouts that your skin is too pale. Someone else insists the devil bleaches his servants to mock purity. The priest yells for silence, but the villagers are beyond reason now, trapped in a wave of panic too strong to control. Your body hits the mud with a thud, heavy and lifeless. You cough violently, spitting up water thick with dirt. Your chest convulses, dragging in air that feels like needles. Every breath is a battle, every movement a punishment. The world around you spins, the torches blurring into golden streaks. You can barely lift your head. The reeve kneels beside you, staring with wide, trembling eyes. He wasn't expecting this. He wasn't expecting you to sink. Innocence wasn't part of the story he rehearsed in his mind. Now he hesitates. Humans fear the unknown, but they fear being wrong even more. The priest moves closer, robes dragging through the mud, face rigid with a cold, calculating expression. He leans over you, holding his torch inches from your face, not close enough to burn you. Just close enough to watch how you react. A test, always another test. You flinch weakly from the heat. Whispers ripple through the crowd. Some terrified, some convinced, some unsure. The priest watches you closely, then stands, wiping his hand on his robe as if contaminating himself with your presence might be dangerous. "Sink or not," someone mutters near the back of the crowd. "The devil hides where he pleases." A woman cries out that you must be spared. A farmer argues that you must be burned before the next sunrise. A boy says you spoke a cursed language. A man insists your clothes mark you as an omen. The voices rise, overlapping, clashing, the way fear does when it infects a community. You try to crawl backward, but your body collapses instantly. You're too weak, too cold, too sick, too unfamiliar to be accepted, too human to be killed without hesitation. The reeve steps forward to restore order. The priest raises a hand to silence the crowd. And for the first time since arriving in this century, you feel something worse than fear. Uncertainty. They don't know what to do with you. Kill you, spare you, question you, torture you, isolate you, or leave you to die from the sickness already consuming your body. Midnight presses deeper into the village, suffocating everything with a cold that feels alive. The reeve looks down at you. The priest stares at you like a puzzle carved from bone. The villagers watch you like a storm cloud ready to burst. And then the priest says something low, solemn, final. The choice has been made, but not revealed yet. Your fate is only seconds away. The priest's voice cuts through the cold night like a blade, low enough that only the front row truly hears it, but heavy enough that everyone feels its weight. He doesn't shout. He doesn't need to. In the Middle Ages, the priest's whisper carried more authority than a king's command. And whatever he just said makes the villagers collectively exhale, not in relief, but in grim acceptance. A decision has been made. A next step chosen. A path forward carved through superstition and fear. Two men grab you under the arms again, lifting you from the mud. Your body hangs limp, soaked, shivering violently, your skin turning the color of ashes. Your breath comes in short, uneven bursts, each inhale sharp enough to make your chest convulse. The fever burns through you like wildfire now, mingling with the cold until you can't tell where the sickness ends and the environment begins. Your hand, infected, swollen, throbbing, looks almost alien attached to your arm. They drag you across the ground toward a small wooden structure near the edge of the village. At first you think it's a barn, then a shed. Then you notice the heavy iron latch, the slanted roof, the thick door reinforced with beams. It's not a barn. It's not a shed. It's a holding hut. A medieval jail, not for criminals, for suspects, witches, possessed, cursed wanderers, people the villagers didn't know what else to do with. They pull the door open, and a rush of cold, stale air spills out, air that smells like mold, old hay, and the faint metallic tang of dried blood. Someone has been in here before. Many someones. You're thrown inside, hitting the floor with your shoulder. Straw sticks to your wet clothes. Dirt clings to your skin. The men pull the rope from your wrists but leave you too weak to move. The priest stands at the door, staring at you with an expression you still can't decipher. Part solemn, part analytical, part afraid of what you represent. He says something to the reeve. The reeve nods. The priest steps back as the door begins to close. You gather the last scraps of strength you still have. Wait, please! The door slams shut before the word finishes leaving your lips. Darkness engulfs you instantly. Not soft darkness, not peaceful darkness. A choking blackness, thick and oppressive, the kind that makes your heartbeat sound deafening inside your ears. You blink, but nothing changes. It's total, blinding, final. You try to shift your weight, but your legs tremble violently. You fall sideways into the straw, coughing from the cold water still trapped in your lungs. Your stomach spasms, your head throbs. Your breath fogs the air in front of your mouth, though you see none of it. You only feel it. Hours pass, or minutes, or maybe seconds. Time stops meaning anything inside this box of shadows. Your fever rises higher. Your vision pulses, not with light, but with waves of dizziness that feel like the world is tilting. You hear faint noises outside, murmurs, footsteps, a dog barking, the distant rumble of a cartwheel. But they all blend into one long, continuous hum. You're slipping, drifting, sinking into something you might not wake from. Then the door creaks again. Weak torchlight spills across the floor, cutting a golden stripe through the darkness. You squint, lifting your head a few centimeters. It's the woman from earlier, the one who tried to protect you. She carries a small bowl in her hands. Something steaming, something that smells of broth, herbs, maybe onions or garlic. Food, warmth. A desperate attempt at mercy in a world that punishes mercy. She crouches beside you, whispering softly, urgently, as if afraid someone outside might hear her sympathizing with you. She lifts the bowl to your lips. The steam warms your face. Your body craves the heat so violently that your hands tremble as you try to grip the edge. You manage one sip. It burns your throat in the best way possible. But the woman suddenly stiffens at a sound outside. Footsteps. A man's voice. The reeve. She quickly sets the bowl down beside you, whispers a final word, a plea, a warning, and slips away into the darkness of the night. The door shuts again. But this time, you're not alone with the darkness. You're alone with your thoughts. And the realization that dawn will not save you, because dawn in the Middle Ages is not mercy. It's judgment. Outside, the priest and the reeve are deciding what happens to you in the morning. A punishment, a test, a ritual you don't understand. Maybe even the arrival of someone with more authority to judge you. The fever overtakes you again, dragging you into a half-conscious fog. Your body curls against the straw instinctively, trying to preserve warmth that refuses to stay. Your breath rattles. Your infected hand pulses like a second heartbeat. You're too weak to stand, too cold to think, too sick to hope. And somewhere in the darkness of that medieval hut, with the villagers outside deciding your fate, you finally understand the truth. You didn't fail to survive the Middle Ages because of violence, or wolves, or superstition. You failed because you're human. A modern human, fragile in ways you never realized, soft in ways you never noticed, naive in ways you never questioned. And in this century, being human is the most dangerous thing of all. You don't know when you drift into sleep. You don't know how long you remain unconscious. You only know that when your eyes open again, the darkness has changed. It's no longer soft or silent. It feels heavier, as if the night itself has thickened around you. Your breathing comes out harsh, shallow. The fever has taken hold of your entire body now, burning you from the inside out, while the cold of the medieval world freezes you from the outside in. A war inside your skin that you are losing by the second. Something shifts in the straw beside you. Soft, faint. You freeze. Your ears strain for any sound. At first you think it's a rat, and you wouldn't even be surprised. Rats ruled the Middle Ages just as much as kings and priests. But then you hear a whisper, a human whisper. Weak, trembling, not yours. You turn your head, slowly. In the far corner of the hut, barely visible in the faintest trace of moonlight slipping through the roof, lies another person. Curled in on themselves, covered in tattered cloth, shaking violently. Breathing fast and shallow, the way someone breathes when they're slipping away from life. You blink, trying to focus. Their face is gaunt, pale, eyes sunken. They cough. A deep, painful cough that echoes off the wooden walls with a wet crackle inside the chest. You recognize it instantly, not from medieval history, but from your own world. Pneumonia, severe, untreated, deadly. And now you're sharing a tiny, sealed hut with them. Breathing the same air, the same cold, the same sickness. Medieval villages didn't isolate the sick out of mercy. They isolated them because death was contagious, and fear was stronger than compassion. You try to pull yourself away, but your body can barely move. Your infected hand pulses again, shooting pain up your arm like lightning. The edges of your vision blur. The taste of iron fills your mouth. You lean your head back onto the straw and breathe slowly, but every inhale sounds like a rattle in your lungs. The person in the corner coughs again, harder this time. Something wet splatters onto the floor. You don't need light to know what it is. Blood. You close your eyes. This is the Middle Ages. And the Middle Ages had no mercy for the sick. Minutes stretch into hours, or maybe hours compress into minutes. Fever bends time until it curls in on itself. You drift in and out, consciousness slipping like water through your fingers. At one point, the door rattles. A sliver of torchlight leaks through the crack. Voices whisper outside, male voices, serious, urgent. You recognize the priest's tone, that cold authority, that unshakable certainty that faith is a weapon and he is its wielder. You try to listen. A word stands out, even through the fever, even through the dialect. Execution. Your stomach drops. The fever seems to vanish for a moment, replaced by pure survival instinct. Your heart slams against your ribs. You push yourself upright, but your strength evaporates immediately, and you collapse back into the straw with a thud. The voices continue. Another word rises through the wooden boards. Dawn. Execution at dawn. As if you are not a human being. As if you are a threat, a curse, a lesson to be taught to the village. You squeeze your eyes shut, panic crawling through your veins like fire ants. You can't run. You can barely breathe. You can't speak their language. You can't defend yourself. You can't explain you're not possessed, not cursed, not a devil in disguise. You are just wrong for this world, and this world doesn't tolerate wrong. You pull your knees closer to your chest, teeth chattering so hard they hurt. The person in the corner coughs again, weaker this time. You wish you could talk to them, ask who they are, how they ended up here, but you can barely lift your head. The night drags on, the cold worsens. Your breath fogs the air in faint puffs that rise and disappear. And outside, the villagers prepare for sunrise, the hour where goddess judgment was carried out by human hands. You try to stay awake, but your body has nothing left to give. You feel yourself slipping again, sliding into the fever's control. Your eyelids become heavy, your limbs numb. The darkness grows softer, warmer, almost welcoming. Just before consciousness leaves you, you hear a final sound, the distant toll of a bell that marks the approach of dawn and the approach of your death. The bell echoes through the village like a warning from the sky itself, deep, slow, resonant, the kind of sound that announces not celebration, but consequence. Dawn hasn't arrived yet, but it's close enough that the horizon has begun to bleed a faint, colorless light through the cracks in the hut. You open your eyes to that thin stripe of grey and realize it might be the last morning you ever see. Your body feels foreign, heavy, numb in some places, burning in others. Your infected hand now looks grotesque, swollen and purple, radiating heat like a furnace. Your chest tightens every few seconds, each breath shallower than the last. Your entire body trembles involuntarily, the fever consuming whatever strength you had left. You try to push yourself upright, but you barely manage to lift your head. Your limbs don't respond the way you want them to. You're not even sure they can. Pain surges through your spine. Darkness dusts the edges of your vision. You grip the straw beneath you, desperate for leverage, for anything that might keep you tethered to this moment. But dawn doesn't wait for the dying. Outside, footsteps begin gathering, slow, deliberate, cold. Boots scraping against frozen mud. Wood creaking under weight. Voices low and grim. They're not excited. They're not celebrating. This isn't entertainment for them. It's duty. A grim, inevitable task meant to protect their world, even if that means taking your life. The door latch rattles. You stop breathing. The Reeve enters first, the early light revealing the deep lines in his face. Behind him, 2 men you saw earlier step inside, each holding ropes. The priest follows last, a silhouette against the rising sun, robes swaying like the wings of a dark bird. His expression is unreadable, somewhere between conviction and fear. He looks at you the way someone might look at a storm cloud before it breaks. You attempt to speak. Your voice collapses on the first syllable. The Reeve kneels, checking your pulse. He doesn't touch your skin directly. He touches your wrist with the back of his knuckle, as if contact might curse him. You can tell he's surprised by how weak your pulse is. You see it in his eyes, a flicker of hesitation. Not mercy, but doubt. The priest steps forward and mutters something sharp, dismissive. Doubt is dangerous. Doubt invites risk. Doubt is the crack through which fear slips into authority. And nothing is more terrifying to a medieval priest than losing control of the narrative. The Reeve stands again. The men grab you, not violently, not angrily, just necessarily. You are lifted like a bundle of cloth, your feet dragging through the straw. The cold air outside stabs your skin, forcing a gasp from you that sounds more like a choke. Your legs don't hold you. The men keep you upright by gripping your arms tightly enough to bruise. The villagers form a wide circle. Some look at you with pity, others with terror, a few with conviction. Children hide behind their mothers. Dogs pace nervously. The world feels muted, like death has muffled everything already. In the center of the circle stands a wooden post. Your stomach collapses inward. They position you in front of it. A man steps forward with rope. He wraps it around your wrists, your arms, your chest, tying you to the post so tightly you feel the wood digging into your spine. Your breath comes in short, ragged bursts. Someone whispers that they should hurry. Before the devil inside awakens, the priest raises his torch, murmuring a prayer in Latin, the words rolling over the crowd like smoke. Your heart slams so hard against your ribs you think it might burst. You pull against the ropes instinctively, but your body has no strength left. You barely move. Every muscle trembles. Your vision flickers again. The fever surges to its sharpest point, burning through your veins. You're dying, even without them. The Reeve looks at you one last time. There's something in his face. Regret, maybe, or resignation. A soft sadness only a man who has buried too many neighbors might carry. He nods at the priest, and the priest steps closer with the torch. The flame dances, hungry, ember red, gold, alive. Heat radiates toward you, warming your skin for the first time in hours. But this warmth is not meant to save you. It's meant to erase you. Your breath catches. Your heart squeezes painfully. You try one last time to speak, to plead, to say anything that might force humanity back into their bones. But the words die in your throat, because your body is shutting down. From infection, from cold, from fever, from despair, from a world that was never designed for you. The priest lowers the torch. The flame touches the dry wood below you. It hisses, crackles, spreads. The villagers step back. The Reeve bows his head. The priest continues his prayer. And for one final, lucid moment, as the fire grows at your feet, swallowing air, and time and thought, you understand a truth more brutal than anything else you've experienced. You didn't die because the Middle Ages were cruel. You didn't die because the villagers were ignorant. You didn't die because you failed to adapt. You died because the modern world protected you from truths your ancestors lived with every day. Fragility, sickness, superstition, and fear. And in a time where survival was a miracle and death a constant companion, you were never meant to last even 24 hours. The flames rise, the world blurs, everything fades into orange and gold, and then nothing. A silence older than history itself.